Hey everybody, PJ back with Exotic Car Hacks, and today we are going to be looking at something that a lot of people are talking about, but they are giving you the wrong information. And that is the car market in a bubble? Should you be buying an exotic car now? Pricing is to the roof everywhere. Base Huracans used to sell for $150 wholesale. Now they're selling $190 wholesale. I mean, Performantes went down to $250. Now they're back at $300. What kind of world are we living in, and what is happening? And no, it isn't just COVID. So if someone has been telling you, listen, it's just a supply shortage and that's what it is and prices will go back down, then you need to stop getting your financial education from people who have no money. This isn't just what's happening, and you need to start understanding what cars aren't going back down, which ones are going to be dangerous, and why Exotic Car Hacks exist. So let's go to my whiteboard, let's figure this out together, and hopefully you're gonna learn something really exciting in this video because, again, this is the whole core of what we teach here at Exotic Car Hacks. So make sure, before we get into this, you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos just like this one. Let's go and talk about the market bubbles and what you need to know right now. All right, guys, so as I promised, today we're going to be looking at, is the market a bubble, or is there risk? Should you even be buying a car now? And so there has been a lot of very basic conversation of this all over YouTube by people who aren't investing millions of dollars each month in the car market like I do. Partially, they have opinions and speculation about what's happening to the car market in terms of right now prices are high, you should be careful, or we're in a bubble, things are going to crash. And there is a lot that they are not talking about because there's no technical expertise out there on the car market. Partially because obviously they haven't been in the car market that long. A lot of YouTubers are very young. And the other part of it is they're not involved in all aspects of the trade, from the finance to everything else. So here I'm going to basically burst a lot of people's bubbles about what is actually happening in the car market and what are some of the things you should be paying attention to in terms of what is going to kind of stay the new norm versus what is going to kind of switch. So we know that there is one basic problem right now in the market, and that is the supply and demand model, right? So we know just basic economics, nothing this proprietary here. When supply, goes down, demand goes up, or demand stays the same, price goes up. So we know that COVID created a significant issue in supply that is over 12 months old and is now still catching up. So we know that supply right now is hurt. This doesn't take a mathematical genius or an economic genius to tell you that, and this is the reality of what's happening. Now, with the economy hurting, and while some people still are making great money in the economy, there is, however, a big plus in demand recently, and that does not necessarily come from people. And this is the part that a lot of people are getting wrong. You see, supply has gone down. We know that. So what has happened in the supply factor that creates this price index to keep going up? And this is what people are not talking about. So let's take a new Rolls-Royce Ghost as an example, right? You're talking about, for example, a $440,000 Ghost, right? In the past, when a new Ghost would come out, it would be discounted anywhere from 50 to 100K within the first 6 months, right? This is basically a dealer incentive. This is leases, and so on and so forth, right? So this is the core of it. So when you have that, you're basically running a car that's 6 months old at 340K, and that's a good deal on that car brand new, right? So what do you think happens to the previous model that was trending at 300 when you can buy a brand new redesigned model for 340? Well, that model now used, right, has to drop to 200 to 250K to make sense. Now, all of this right here takes basically 1 year to take effect. This is why we talk about depreciation schedules and talk about these incentives being not the sucker that loses the first 100K. What happens with these supply shortages and changes is that dealers don't get 40 to 50 units here to sell at some discount. So they don't have the same amount of money in these cars to make money. So their money has to make more money because there's less cars. So these discounts start to go away. And now the price on a brand new Rolls-Royce is still 440K a year later. What this creates right here is that the used market here no longer needs to drop its ass to 2 to 250 to make sense. It can now remain basically at 3 to 350 and still make good sense, because at 350 you're still saving 100K from the new car, and it still makes sense at that rate. So the push down doesn't occur as fast. So now it takes a period of 2 to 3 years for that same to come down because of the supply shortage from COVID. So one of the things you have to understand about supply here is that it's not short forever, it's delayed. And delay means there's going to be a lot of adjustments to that delay. So yes, we can expect Rolls-Royce prices to drop. So if you're buying a new Ghost, you might be safe for a year. It might still be a good time to buy, but eventually you're going to start seeing that initial depreciation pushing itself because, not even because there's so much more supply coming, but for the basic fact that right now we're looking at 2021, but even though supply may be short in 2021, 2022 models will still come out even if there's a shortage of 2021. So you're still going to have labeled 2022 models, and that is going to push down 2021s regardless of how many units are there. How much it pushes it down will change based on units, but it is going to get pushed down. And so this is what's going to happen in general. That's how this works. So this is something that no one's talking about. The second thing that you need to be paying attention to is also the fact that dealers are basically the ones controlling this narrative. That's why you're paying more and they're making more, but they're not selling more units because the markets are pretty dry. Now, why has demand gone up? Is it because of Bitcoin millionaires? Is it because people have magically come out of the woodworks and made a ton more money in the stock market? Well, some of it, certainly. I'm sure there's a ton of new people and newcomers in the market buying new Lamborghinis and Ferraris because they didn't previously have money. How is that any different from what's been happening in the world before that? It's not. And so the majority of the demand isn't actually coming from the US. And this is actually what other people, again, aren't talking about. Exports were up over 70% last month. And why is that a big deal? Because of one thing that, again, no one's talking about because they're talking about cars instead of money. It's currency deflation. So if you look at the average import rate into a country of 18%, meaning you have to pay 18% more to import a car into a country, and the currency is up 30% in some cases on trade, that means that you're basically making 12%, even though you're buying something at full price. So why is this important? Well, remember, used cars can be imported, new cars cannot. There isn't enough new car supply to drive constantly used cars coming in. And the used cars, instead of coming here on dealer trades, because new cars aren't here, they're selling overseas. So what's happening is the UK, Europe is buying all of our supply. So why are they buying here? If their currency is strong, why don't they just buy at home? Well, this is where you have to understand what's happening in its correlation to the entire market. The reason they buy here is because the US is the largest carrier of luxury goods across the globe. So we get more allocations for cars than anywhere else. So if you think our supply is fucked, the supply worldwide is also screwed the same exact way, and even more so because they get less. So if they got only 10% of the supply in Europe, now they're getting 2% of the supply because we're still getting, instead of 90%, 70%. So we still take our 70% over their 2% or 10%, and that's why they don't have cars. But remember, laws prohibit them from importing new cars, so they can get used cars. So they like used low mileage cars and they sell fast. And that's one of the reasons why, because of the deflation, that's actually causing the demand to rise overseas. In addition to that, overseas where the cars are made, here's the part that people aren't talking about again. Dollar weakens. So here's something that a lot of people don't realize. MSRP goes up. When the dollar weakens, they have to now charge more MSRP to justify their cost of production. So cost of goods goes up. So now, here's the thing that, again, people aren't understanding here in the car hacking models, that these are finance models. They're not car, like, dealer models. It's more about the finance of how money works into the equation. So let's look at the idea that MSRP goes up. So in 2019, for example, you have an Urus with an MSRP average of like 250 well loaded. In 2021, because of the base MSRP increase, the same car is 300K. So now you have a 50K increase. It's the same exact car. So here's what's happening again. Both of these factors right here with the 250 and 300 come back to this very same equation. If you start here at 300 instead and you have no incentives, and you're basically at 300 for the same car, the used car at 250 doesn't have to depreciate to look like a good deal, because a 2019 with 2,000 miles at 250 is still a better deal than a brand new car at 300 because you're saving 50K for 2,000 miles. And so it still makes a lot of sense. Both cars are still on the warranty, so pricing isn't going to get pushed down. So what cars should you be looking at? Or this all seems dangerous because cars can change dollars. So first off, short term, I think anybody's safe in anything they're buying right now. There's such a shortage in supply, and the hot cars and the good ones are just going to be hard to get. So ordered cars are always going to bring more money because they're special. There is, however, something that happens as a result of this. Some of this, like we said, is delayed, meaning delay means that eventually it's going to crash. But some of it is not. Which markets are not? So as a result of this and prices rising, we see older cars like F355 Ferraris, 360s, 430s, Gallardos, R8s, they're rising because the new cars aren't dropping. So what happens to that old car? Well, the old car has no new supply entering the market. There is significantly more demand on that car. Now, all of that is causing that old car to rise up. Also consider that a lot of these cars are not going out of the equation. Many manufacturers announcing they are no longer, absolutely no longer producing gasoline cars in the next 5 years. Why is that a big deal? Because in the next 5 years, that means that these cars will be obsolete. People are betting their money on the heritage of these cars and knowing that they're no longer going to be able to buy an R8 under 100K. So they are buying these while supply still exists. And those cars aren't coming back down. That's the part you need to understand. So there are cars that are going to find some level of kind of drop just on the basis that they're new and newer models stack on top. But in the exotic world, each generation has its own following. And there are many cars like the 355 6-speeds, they're not coming back down to 50 grand. The 360 6-speeds, they're not coming back down to 80 grand. Those cars are long gone now. And any new car will top itself because supply is non-existent in these cars. And this is exactly why you need to understand finance and why I teach what I teach at Exotic Car Hacks, because half of the opinions on YouTube about what's happening in the market are basically children and trust fund kids that don't understand anything about money and are sitting there with an opinion because they own one exotic or 4 exotics. And that's not how the game works. Just because you own 4 cars doesn't mean you understand the infrastructure of how the entire economy around the car markets work. And this is why Exotic Car Hacks is a different type of channel where we talk about finance and the things that really matter in the world of cars. So check that out. Make sure you click the link below and actually join us in the real Exotic Car Hacks community where you're going to learn exactly how these models work and how to further your knowledge of which cars to buy and how to not lose money on an exotic car. But make sure you subscribe, you like the channel, no shenanigans today, pure education. So make sure you give me a good comment here for helping you. Don't be an asshole. And otherwise, I will catch you in the next video for Exotic Car Hacks. Be well, guys.